Welcome back to Intro to Irrigation. This is one of our labs that we were supposed to do after spring break. So we're going to do it here in my yard, and we'll see how it goes. So today we're going to build a portable sprinkler system that you hook up to a garden hose. We can run different types of irrigation heads on, and it was a lab that we were going to build. Like I said, we'll do it today. So I actually have one completed here. So this is pretty much what we're going to build. We'll have our hose bib here, so our hose would connect here. Water would fill all the PVC here, and then it would come up through the riser, and then we'll put our irrigation head on the end of it. So we're going to build a slightly smaller version of this, and something you can do at home, and for your garden or for your lawn or sod or anything, and it's a neat thing to do. So this is a picture of it. So the first thing we want to do is we need to visualize exactly what we're trying to make today. So this is a picture of it. You can see I kind of drew it. So we have a riser here. Here's our square base, the water coming out of it, and then our hose hookup here. And then our water hose. This is our water source coming from a garden hose, which we'll demonstrate later. So this is what we're going to be making today. So now that we know exactly what we want to make, I need to figure out the parts that we need. So what I did was I just kind of have an expanded view of what we're going to be doing here. It might be a little hard to see, but some of the parts that we would need. So our base is going to be square here. We're going to have a brace PVC that runs right through the middle, and then our riser connection would be here. So in doing that, we need to figure out the parts that we need. So I know I have 4 corners here, so I'm going to need 4 elbows, these, to make our corners there. And then we're going to have, some of these are 3-ways, so in order to run pipe into the middle where the riser is, we're going to need a T down here. We're going to run this all the way through, so we'll need an additional T on the top of it. And then in the middle we need a T coming straight up for the riser. And then I actually left one off of here. So now so that's basically the parts for the base. But then we need a connection that connects to our water hose. So I'm going to add one in right here on the bottom. So we need another T that's going to connect our water to the entire system here. So so that's the base of it, and then there's some pipe and other stuff that we would need. So today we're going to be using a 3/4 inch pipe, and we're going to need the fittings which I just discussed about. We're going to make this 18 inches square, so one side will be 18 inches. All 4 sides would be 18 inches. It's a square, so. So we'll use that, and we'll do some measurements based on that. So the next thing, once we kind of have an idea of what we want to do, and we could draw it out, and we kind of, we know what we're going to do, we can actually look up, write down all the materials list that we're going to need for this particular project. So in this project, and again, all of this stuff you can buy at your local hardware store, from Lowe's or Home Depot, box store, whatever. All of this stuff you can get locally off the shelf. There's really no special parts to it. So we're gonna need, we know we're gonna need 4 T's. So I have all of those. So it's just a 2-way at an angle, 90-degree angle. We have there. The next thing we're gonna need are elbows. T's. These are T's. Excuse me. So it looks like a T, obviously. So it's a 3-way T. We will need 4 of those as well, and then the next item is our elbows, which we'll need 4 of those to make the corners with. We also have a 3/4 inch, whatever right here, female slit by female thread adapter. So this is going to be for, it's hard to see, but so this is an adapter. It kind of looks like a coupling straight through, but it's slip on one side, meaning that there's no threads on one end, and it's female threaded on the inside. This is for our irrigation head. So this is going to be at the top of the riser where we're going to mount our irrigation head. That will thread right into it. So we have that part that we'll be dealing with, and then the next thing we will need is our water hose hookup. So we'll need a T that the water hose goes into, but the water hose itself can't plumb directly into this T. So what we need a special fitting for that. So we need everything's 3/4 inch. So we need a 3/4 inch, what's known as a FHT by slip adapter. We're going to need one of those, which is this little guy here. So I have to explain this a little bit. So FHT, that's just a fancy term for it's female hose thread is what it stands for, FHT. But these threads aren't like standard pipe threads. If you notice, when you use a water hose, you have a little gasket, you have an O-ring on the inside of it. The threads are different. They're not going to match up with a standard pipe thread. So there's a special adapter, which is this. So we're going to glue slip pipe in on one end of it, and then this is our female swivel end. I don't know if you can see that this moves. We're going to thread on to our garden hose, and that's going to provide water to the entire system. So we'll need one of those as well. We're going to need some 3/4 inch pipe as well. So I've got quite a bit of that. I said 10 feet of it. So if you were to buy this at your local hardware store or a box store, it's going to come in 10-foot sticks, so to speak. So I basically just grabbed one of those, and we're just going to eat up all 10 feet of it. So which we'll discuss later. We'll pretty much use most of it anyway. We're going to need regular clear PVC cement. So it's another item thing. So if because we're gluing pipe onto fittings, the glue that we need is going to be this clear PVC cement. There's many different kinds of PVC cement that we've discussed before. It also comes in, it'll come in blue. Blue is actually used for wet conditions or kind of underwater use and kind of a fast drying. So we'll use this in some cases. There's also a gray, a heavy set kind of glue. So this is PVC cement gray, heavy body. So it's mainly used for larger PVC pipe and things like that. So it's slow setting. You can't put water pressure on it immediately or else the pipes could blow apart. But it is much stronger over the long run. But most of our uses for for irrigation or homeowner use and things like that, we're going to use this clear PVC glue. So as you see, it's called clear because it is clear, obviously. So so that's one component of our glue, so to speak. And the next one is clear, cleaner, or primer. So the cans are going to look very similar. So this is the glue, and this is the primer. So in this case, now this is a clear primer. A lot of you, when we've discussed this before about purple primer. So we use purple primer in situations where, in a commercial setting where your irrigation or your plumbing is going to be inspected. So the inspector wants to be able to see that purple around to make sure that it was primed correctly. But in our case, doing it for yourself and for your own irrigation purposes, we don't need a marker in it. Plus, it looks terrible when it's above ground. So I use the clear version of it. So what primer does is it does two things. One, it cleans. So if you're a lot of the pipe, if you buy it brand new, it's going to be pretty clean. But in most cases, and in my case here, this pipe is sat outside a long time, so it has some dirt and stuff on it. So it's going to take, when we go to glue the pipe together, it's going to take some of that dirt and all that off. The other thing that it does is the PVC pipe is very smooth, but when you prime it or when you put the cleaner and primer on, it actually etches the PVC a little bit, so it kind of knocks that smoothness off of it. In one way, it's kind of like putting sandpaper on it. It makes the surface rough, allows more surface area for the glue to adhere to and bind to it a lot better. So the primer is good for that as well. So those are the two components that we'll be dealing with: gluing straight pipe, smooth slip pipe into slip fittings like that, which is what we're going to be doing today. So, oh yeah, and of course the irrigation head, which I almost forgot. So we'll look at a few different kinds of those. I've got a different one on the one over here. I've got 3 different ones we can look at. Materials, tools. Okay, so some of the tools that we won't need that many tools. PVC cutter. So this you can buy off the shelf almost anywhere. And this will cut up to, I think, inch or inch and a quarter pipe. This is this little small device, maybe $15 or so. You can also use it's a saw, but it's called a PVC saw. So it's specially designed to cut through PVC, which we'll be doing some of that. So these are some manual versions of that. You can also, same thing if you have a Sawzall. If you use a Sawzall with a wood blade on it, it'll which is a relatively coarse cut blade, it'll cut through PVC. Most small projects, I'm just going to use this kind of stuff. One of the issues you could run into with actually using a power tool or power saw is when you go to cut the PVC, it has a tendency to want to nick and break some of the pipe. It can do that. So on little small projects, and most of the time, if I'm not building a large irrigation system, I'm just using PVC saw, this for smaller pipe, and then if I can cut anywhere up to 4 to even 6 inch pipe with this. So, and believe it or not, in larger pipe we actually cut with a chainsaw. So very, very large stuff. But for our little project, we just need our little cutters here. We're also going to need a tape measure, obviously, so we can measure our cuts. We will need something to mark with, so our Sharpie marker here. So anything, it could be a pencil, it could be whatever. You just need something to mark the PVC with. A lot of cases you need eye protection, because you don't want to get glue and primer or any burrs in your eyes. And then gloves. We're gonna wear these gloves. It could be any kind of gloves really. You just don't. Primer's not as bad, but glue on your hands, this can burn your skin. I don't worry about it myself too much, but it also looks kind of unsightly, and it takes several days for the glue to come off of your hand. So it's always best practices to use gloves for that. Okay, so I think that was, yep, that's it. So that's basically all the supplies that we're going to use. So the first thing we're going to do is, now that we know where we're at here, so this is what we're going to make. And we know our dimensions, so we need to make some 18-inch. We need to cut PVC pipe into 18-inch lengths, pretty much. So what we're going to do, I've actually already cut mine, but we'll do a demonstration just on cutting pipe to begin with. So this is a leftover piece of pipe that I have here. So if we were to measure this, yeah, this is leftover, so I can cut it. So if we need an 18-inch piece of PVC, we're just going to measure 18 inches on it, which is a 1.5 feet. So I'll mark it with my Sharpie marker here. I'm using a Sharpie marker, so hopefully you could see it in the video. So this is my first video I've made, so it's going to be a little odd. But anyway, so I went ahead and I measured 18 inches, measured it and marked it on our PVC here. And I'm going to take my little PVC cutter, it's open, and I'm going to put it right on the mark. Where it binds, starts to bind to it and start to cut in, and now I'm just going to cut it. So this part's pretty simple. You just squeeze and release, and it cuts it through. Not a big deal at all. So now if you were to use a saw, so this actually makes a nice clean cut. It's pretty smooth. There's relatively simple thing. If you were to use a saw like this, we could do the same thing. So let's just assume I measured it. Obviously cutting PVC at a picnic table isn't necessarily ideal, but you're going to cut it just like you were cutting wood or anything else with a handsaw. Alright, so I know you can't see it, but it's not as clean of a cut, and you end up with a lot of burrs. So sawing through that PVC, you end up with a lot of white flakes, white pieces of PVC that float around. It's not a huge deal, other than it's a mess, or it can be a mess, and a lot of times it leaves a lot of burrs where you cut, and then you end up having to sand it off. So you might need a piece of sandpaper or even a knife just to knock off some of those burrs to make it smooth again. So I guess that's one way this is superior to a saw. But if you're cutting anything 2-inch or larger pipe, you're not going to be able to cut it with this anyway. You're going to have to use a saw like this. So that's why on small pipe, this is anything like 1.5 inches or less, these are ideal on. So the first thing I'm going to do, all right. So we made our cut. We'll cut some more pipe here. But I've got, I went ahead and cut all 4 sides 18 inches of my pipe here. So what I'm going to do is get my gloves, they blow away, and I'm going to start to go ahead and glue the parts together. Okay, so got my gloves on, it's my eye protection here, put that on, and then I'm going to start with one piece of my pipe, or actually 2 maybe, I guess. So let me get the right ones here, I don't have them marked up. Alright, so they're both 18 inches, both the same length. These are going to be the sides. These are going to be opposite sides of each other. There's no T that's going to be on the sides based on this. If we were looking back at our chart, we're going to do these 2 sides here. Like that. So first thing we're going to do is I need to glue some fittings on it. So we know that we're going to be using our not our T's but our 90s. Our elbows right here. We're going to glue these 2 on either side like that, and we want to make sure they're lined up straight, because when this sits on the ground, we want the 90s to match perfectly and sit flat on the ground when we go to use it. So the first thing I'm going to do, take my cleaner and I'm going to clean both sides. So it's the inside of the fittings that we need to clean and the outside of the pipe that we need to clean. So I'm just going to knock off, make sure the dirt's off of it. Just kind of, this pipe was a little bit dirty. Clean it a little bit on one side. I'm gonna pick which one. It really doesn't matter which side of the 90 that I use, but I'll go ahead and clean both. It's good practice to do anyway, because I will end up gluing it to something. Open my, so that was the primer. So now we've primed this and this. So now I'll use my glue here, put glue in on one side, on the inside of the fitting, and on the outside of the pipe, like so. And then I'm just going to make sure I put the right end that I glued on there. So there's glue inside the fitting, glue on the outside of the pipe. I'm going to slide it on and I'm going to twist it as best I can. I'm going to twist it, I push it on in until it bottoms out. And then I twist it. And the reason why I twist it is because I don't want there to be any channels where water could actually escape and get past. If the pipe wasn't made correctly, or there's a burr on it or something, it could etch a channel through the glue into it. So I don't want that. So when I can, I'm going to twist the pipe. Then I'm just going to hold it a second, and then there it is. It's glued together. Now I will say this, with this fast setting glue, you're not going to be able to pull this fitting back off. You might have maybe 10 seconds, and then you to pull it off if you needed to. Otherwise, it's on there for good. And if you made a mistake, you got to start over again. So it's glued in completely. So I'll go ahead and do the other side here. It's also good practice to, I didn't want to get my picnic table dirty, so I used a old towel to put down, because glue and everything gets kind of nasty, and we really don't want to wear, and I've already got glue on the table, and you don't want to wear good clothes when you're doing it. So I'm going to line up my tees. I can actually put them on the table to make sure that they're in line the way I want. So that's one leg of it, and then we'll go ahead and do the next side. I will put cleaner on both sides of this pipe. One thing I failed to mention is when you clean the pipe, you only have to go as far as the depth of the fitting itself. So in this case, it's approximately about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. We'll probably have to measure one soon here, but it really doesn't matter. You know, it's roughly about an inch or so with these particular fittings. So I've cleaned that one. Clean these. I'm gonna go ahead and clean all 4. Speed it up. I'll put glue again about an inch or so on that side, and then just a little bit of glue in there. Make sure they're lined up. Twist it. Hold it a second. And then you can let go. It's not going to push itself back out. So sometimes if you put too much glue on the inside of the fitting, it will try to push itself off of the pipe, but we're in pretty good shape here. Go ahead and do the other one. So I already cleaned it. So I'll put glue on. And again, it's very important. I have two fittings here that they're lined up together. So I'll turn them to make sure they're lined up. I can even set it on the table again. That way, so these are two sides with our four corners on it. So if I were to put these together, they should pretty much line up like this. Now of course we're going to put pipe in between that. So that's what we're going to do next. So because we're going to put, if I could hold this somehow, there will be a piece of pipe that runs through the middle that's going to connect. So there's a T that's going to go here, at least, well, a T that's going to go here, and a T that's going to go right here, right in the middle. There's actually another T because we have to connect our water supply to it, but we'll get to that. So what I can do is I can actually, there's several things we can do here. We can, which for the purpose of the video, I might just go ahead and glue them together so it's easier to visualize. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue these together. There was no glue on that. Go ahead and glue all of our fittings together. And again, and make sure it's square. So we want to make sure our fittings are facing each other and not, you know, I guess this would be the correct way to look at it, to make sure when it sits on the ground that it's actually sitting flat on the ground. So I'll take the other piece, trying not to make a mess and get it all over everything. Put glue. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on both sides because I can do it quick enough. Go ahead and glue both sides at one time. Slide it in there. Now in this case, you're going to have to pull the pipe. Well, what'll do that? You have to pull the pipe a little bit to get it to fit on it, onto the pipe, and then push them together and hold them. So now we've essentially made our square. So this is going to be this is our base of what we're working with here. Now it's a little easier to see. It might be a little harder to put together, but so you can see this. But we need to add T's in here because now water can't get in here. We have no water connection to it. This is a closed pipe. This is a closed system. So because we want a riser to be right in the middle and it would be facing you straight out. If I had it tilted up on its side, I need this right here. Well, how do I get water to this point? Well, I'm going to have to connect it into the base somehow. And for structural integrity, I'm going to make sure that we're going to run a piece of pipe straight down here with a T in the middle running it straight out because I don't want it to, we kind of want it to be solid. So when you go to move it around, technically we could only do one side of it and run right to the middle with a 90 degree elbow on it, but it would be kind of loose in there. When it's full of water, there's a good chance of it breaking off. So we're going to go ahead and tie it across the whole thing. So what I'll do is we're going to need to cut this again, and I want a T right in the middle. So what we'll have to do is measure to where the middle is. So when you're measuring PVC pipe, especially setting like this, I'm going to take my tape measure and run it to the bottom corner right here, right where it corners on the inside of the PVC. And I'll pull the tape to the inside of this PVC as well. Now, because I had already cut this pipe to be 18 inches, guess what the distance is between the inside of this one is and the inside of that one. The distance here, it's going to be 18 inches. So knowing that, and I want this to be right in the middle, we're going to mark it at 9 inches. So, which I think I might have had this marked already, maybe not. So I'll pull it out, pull out the tape measure, and I'm going to mark this right at 9 inches. I don't know if you can see that. Alright, so I've marked this at 9 inches right in the middle. Well, I need to fit this in here. So I can't cut it at 9 inches, because if I cut it at 9 inches and then I slide this guy in here, now it's going to make this leg slightly wider when I put this in, because there's a distance right here. When pipe gets glued into this T, the pipe doesn't come right to the ends don't mate to the center of this T. They actually stops right here. This leg stops here, and this leg actually stops here. Again, right at the base, right at where this T actually corners. So what we have to do is we have to subtract out this distance. So what I'll do is I'll take my T, and I have no idea if you'll be able to see this, but I marked the center line of this T, so I'm going to match the center line of my T up on the 9-inch mark that I put on my PVC, and then I'm going to turn it around so I can mark it better. And now I'm going to draw a line on either side, right at the base, or right at where the T actually corners. So I don't know if you can actually see that. Hopefully you can. But that's pretty essentially what I've done. I've lined up the center line on the pipe to the center line of the T, and then I pretty much marked out. I'm trying to subtract out this gap on this T. So now that I've marked it, I can go ahead and cut it again. So, but I'm not going to cut it in the middle. I'm going to cut it at the new marks that I just made, the 2 new marks. So, if I could get this to work. Cut one side of it. So now it's free, and then I'll cut the other side of it. Alright, so now it might be a little easier to see now that I have a gap in the middle. So this T, notice, I'm subtracting out for that center part of the T, and then I'll glue these legs. I'll glue either end of this T into either end of these two here. So I'll go ahead and do that. That way it keeps everything at 18 inches. Go ahead and clean both sides, clean this. Go ahead and put glue on both sides, or on these 2 parts of the T, the top part of the T. Slide that one on, slide this one, and again, very, very important that your T is flat with the rest of them, kind of matches. So again, when I lay it flat, my T is going straight out, going straight across to the other side. So by subtracting out that center part of the pipe, the distance from here and the distance to here is still going to be 18 inches. So now we want to duplicate that on the back side of it. We want to put a T here, and we're going to run it straight, and we're going to connect to this T. Of course, right in the center of this one, we'll have a T coming straight out for the riser part. So I'll go ahead and mark that. That one out. Clean it. Okay, now that we have this completed, we're right in the middle. So now we're going to add our center piece in here. But we'll need another T because it's going to go in the middle. It's going to go out. It will look something like this when we're finished. So because we want this in the middle as well, what I need to do is measure the distance between here and here. Now we should know that should be 18 inches, and it is. So the distance between here and here is 18 inches as well. So again, we're going to go to that magic number 9 inches, which would represent the middle, and we're going to put, I'm going to line up, see if I could draw it on here. I want to line up, I don't know if you can see the 9 mark, but because we're exactly 18 inches, I'm going to put this mark on this T right in the middle, right on this black line that's right on the 9-inch mark on the tape measure. So I know that it's directly in the middle. So now what I need to do is measure the length of pipe that I'm going to need to fit in between here and here. It should be identical. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to measure now, because again all of our measurements are going to be from these corners. I'm going to measure from the corner of this one to the corner of this one. So they're not going to match because they're going in different directions, but it's the same corner that we're trying to match. So from here to here is about 8.5 inches. So that's the length of pipe that we need to cut. I'll measure the other side too. It's the same, 8.5 inches. So 8.5 inches. That's the length of pipe that we need here, that's going to fit here, and the length of pipe that's going to fit here. So what I'll do is I'll get my spare piece of pipe here, and hopefully I have enough pipe to work with. Maybe I can cut some off of my other one. Oh, what's the length of this one? So I need a pipe that's 8.5 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'll mark it first. Mark it with my finger. So that's going to be 8.5 inches from here to here. Go ahead and make the cut. You always want to make sure you use the right side of your pipe. So I'm going to double check. Pretty sure it was this one. Yep. That piece is 8.5 inches and that one's 8.5 inches. Okay, perfect. Somehow it's directly in the middle. So I don't know how that worked out, but it did. So these are going to be our 2 pieces for either side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just glue one side on. I need my cleaner and my glue. Oops, cleaner first. Clean both. Go ahead and do both sides of the pipe and then both fittings that we're going to glue into. Knock off some of the excess glue. I'm going to glue them at the same time because I'm a pro. Move this out of the way so you can see. So now I'm gluing this side in, but again I want this T to go straight up because this is going to be a riser. So I'm going to have to eyeball it, and it's not quite, there it is. So I push it on and then I can kind of make some slight adjustments typically. So that's it. That's one leg of it. And I'll go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. Clean everything. Glue in there, glue in there, glue on this, glue on this. This small pipe doesn't take a lot of glue. Sometimes these daubers are a little too big for them, so you end up wasting a lot of glue. So now the issue is, so now that we have to fit this pipe in here, it's got to go on the inside of either one of these. So what we're going to do is, gonna have to add some muscle to it. So I'm going to, and this is one of the issues that we discussed in class, as far as putting pipe in. Now how are we going to fit it in here? Well, we're going to actually muscle it in. I'm going to pull this side away from it. I'm going to go ahead and put, if I wait too long, the glue starts to cure and then it won't glue correctly. So I'm just going to add a little more glue. I don't know if you can see how messy it is, but it's pretty messy. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to muscle that one in. I'm going to pull it and then push it together. Now, in doing that, sometimes it's hard to, now I can twist this. Sometimes it's hard to get a little twist on it, but I was able to. So again, you always have to think when you're building things out of PVC exactly how they're gonna fit together and some of the best ways to fit stuff together. We did it one way. There's 100 different ways you could assemble this thing. I did it the best way I thought for a demonstration purpose, so you could see. But anyway, so we have that. So now it's finished, more or less. We're gonna add our riser. riser on there to the top. Now before I do that though, I need a connection. I need to add my connection for my water into it. If you notice, we didn't do that. We don't have a connection here. So now on this one, the one that I had already made, it actually uses a cross here. So it's not, so it actually is a 4-way piece. And I have the actual fitting, if you can see it, I have the actual fitting right here, and it goes all 4 ways. Ours doesn't do that. I didn't have any more 4 ways for that particular size. So what I'm gonna have to do, or what we're gonna have to do, is somewhere in here add a T. But we can add it anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So, because all I'm trying to do is hook up water to it. So I'm going to just choose one side, the side in front of me, and I'm going to say, okay, my fitting is going to go right here. This is where my hose is going to connect to it. So now I can measure it if I wanted to be fancy. Maybe I want it right in the middle again, so 18 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it at, I'll mark it at 9 inches again. That represents the middle. Draw my line here, so now that's the middle of our T. I'll match that line with the middle line on our pipe, and again I'm gonna draw a line. I don't know the best way to see that, but to see exactly what I'm doing, but basically that's what I'm, make sure I'm in the middle still. Let me draw a line here so it's easier to see. So I'm matching that line up with this line, putting the T down, and now I'm just drawing a line on either side of the down portion of the T, because I want to cut that piece out. So we'll go ahead and cut it. Cut that side. So as you can see, basically what we cut out is the width of the top part of the T. That's what we did. We want to cut that out to keep the measurement the same. We want the same 18 inches. So in order to do that, we need to cut that out. Again, like that. So I'll glue this on. I'll glue this fitting on. I can run it through both ways. Cleaner, glue, and I'm going to run glue all the way through because I'm doing those two legs of it. Put one side on, again I'm going to pull it out a little bit to get it to fit, and then push together. And now in this T I want going straight out because I want it to connect from the side of it, and then a riser is going to take the water up. Alright, so now I've got that, but this is still not going to connect to a water hose. So we had our other fitting. So we have our, this is a regular PVC fitting, 3/4 inch on this side, slip. So we're going to glue a small piece of pipe onto that to connect it here. And then on the other side, this is going to be our hose connection. This is our female hose swivel. So I'll do that. I'm just going to take a scrap piece that we had that I'd cut off. And because I can't just glue one connection, I can't glue one female connection to another female connection. So I need a little piece of pipe in there to stub out that I can glue on to. So I will clean this little piece of pipe. Cleaner there, cleaner in all four. I'm just going to go ahead and slather this guy with glue because there's not going to be much pipe sticking out of it. Glue in there, glue there. So I'm going to take this little short barb, slide it inside of that side, and then I'm going to slide it the other end of the short piece of pipe into there. So now, twist it a little bit. So now I have hose connection. It's feeding the base of our irrigation system here. So, alright, so now we're pretty much done. The last thing that we're going to do is glue the riser on. So you might ask, well, how tall or how short does the riser need to be? Well, that's going to depend on your situation. Just keep in mind that for each foot that you're forcing water to travel up, you're losing 0.4 433 psi for every foot. So in my case, we're just gonna toss this one out in the yard. This is I believe it's I measured it earlier, it's 2 foot. So we're just gonna send water up 2 feet. I'll put the well, the first thing I'll do, because this is what I'm going to use, I'm gonna go ahead and glue on the fitting that the irrigation head is gonna thread onto. So I'll glue that on first. Clean it. Glue, put it on. So now that was an adapter, so now we have a nice threaded 3/4 inch end, so we can put our irrigation head on. The other end I'm going to glue to the base of our irrigation system. Like so. And that's pretty much it. So now I have our irrigation system built. I'm going to take a irrigation head. This is just a Excel wobbler that we discussed. I'll thread that on. This is 3/4 inch male thread, 3/4 inch female thread. So this is going to fit on here. I have some other heads too. This one actually, this is a pop-up that you would use in your yard, but it's female 3/4 inch thread. So we'd have to build an adapter or fitting to put this guy on if we wanted to, and then we'll look at the impact here in a second. So now that it's put together, I'm just going to hand thread this on. There's no need, you don't need to use any glue or anything on threads. Definitely don't use glue on threads. I'll make another video. We'll discuss threaded pipe shortly. But anyway, so this is it. So let's put it to the test. Alright, so we've completed our irrigation system here, simple irrigation system, and now I'm going to connect my hose to it. So make sure that the rubber gasket is still in place. Thread this onto the hose, and then I'm going to toss it out there to hopefully not get the camera wet. So now I'm connected. Put it out here. Should be far enough. And then we'll turn the water on. Barely. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's working. It's throwing water from itself almost back over here to the camera. Get pretty close to it. Of course, it's a little bit windy, so it's not exactly 100%. So I've got that head on it, and then I can shut it off and put a different head on. So this is an impact head, and this is actually 1/2 inch male threaded. Well, 1/2 inch male thread is not going to fit on our irrigation sprinkler. That's 3/4 inch female thread. So I have to use an adapter here. So this is 1/2 inch female threaded to male 3/4 inch threaded. So I'll just thread the irrigation head onto it. So now it's going to fit onto our irrigation sprinkler over here. I had to adjust the head so it wouldn't throw water on the camera. So this is our impact sprinkler, and I know it's still hard to see, but I have it just doing maybe
90-degree pattern across. So I haven't adjusted to only spray in that direction. But with the impact, notice it's only spraying in one direction at any given time. But it's spraying out probably a good 25 feet in that direction. Whereas this wobbler was probably, we're about 15 feet from the camera to the sprinkler, and that was about the max that this was going to do. But this was throwing it in 360-degree pattern at all times. So the nice thing about impacts versus wobblers is if you need to adjust it, you can. But they both have their place. So, and there's many different heads you could put on. We could even thread this. We could even thread this irrigation, this Rainbird rotor lawn irrigation head onto it as well. It would pop up and kind of do the same thing that the impact's doing. But anyway, yeah, any irrigation fitting that you could thread onto it, you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to with that. The nice thing about this setup here is you can move it around if you needed to move it around in your yard, or just in a specific garden area. You could put different heads on it. You could build multiple ones of these and have them out in your yard. So it's a good, simple design, and a good lab to learn about cutting and gluing PVC together on. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and y'all have a great week.